And good evening, folks. As the mist begins to creep through the forests and long-forgotten legends come whispering through the trees, I welcome you to another chilling tale. This one takes us deep into the rugged heartlands of North America, where ancient stories linger and something sinister waits beneath the pines. Before we begin, let me say thank you to all of you for tuning in, supporting this channel, and keeping these stories alive. And in the spirit of Halloween, remember, sometimes the most frightening monsters aren't found in haunted houses or ghost stories. Sometimes they're waiting in the woods, wearing a familiar voice. That tonight's journey is one that may leave you checking over your shoulder and wondering, have you ever really been alone in the forest? Far in the northern reaches of the United States and across the border into Canada, there are whispers older than the land itself. Whispers that speak of a creature older than memory. An entity feared by indigenous tribes for centuries. A predator of the human soul. It is said to be a being of hunger. Not the kind you or I feel, but something primal, insatiable, bound to the coldest parts of the earth. The old stories call it many things, but most know it by one name, Wendigo. This creature, if it can even be called that, was said to be born when men gave in to starvation and cannibalism. But over time, the stories evolved. From just a cautionary tale to something else. Something that might not be a man transformed, but a supernatural force altogether. One that mimics, deceives, stalks, and never stops feeding. Most sightings trace back to the deep forests hugging the US-Canada border, places where human footprints vanish quickly and nature holds secrets tightly. But over the years, reports have started pouring in from elsewhere. The woods of Alabama, the farms outside Texas, the icy lakes of Ontario, and in every account, the creature is always watching. It was the summer of 2019. Bradley Clark, a former Marine trying to find steady work after his discharge, had some free time and not many options. When an old buddy, Jacob, invited him to spend a weekend in the northern wilds of Alabama, near the Tennessee border, it felt like a good way to unwind. They hadn't seen each other in years. Jacob had recently settled down in a remote town near thick forests and steep hills, a quiet corner of the world. The kind of place where people still lock their doors at night, but not because of crime. Because of what might come in from the trees. That on the second day of Bradley's visit, they decided to go hunting. Nothing too adventurous. Just an afternoon trek in the woods near Jacob's property. They wanted to be cautious and stay relatively close to home. The hunt was uneventful. A few birds, some distant rustling, but nothing worth firing at. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, the forest grew darker, and the two friends began their walk back toward Jacob's parked truck. That's when they heard it. A strange ruckus. Not far off, but deep enough in the brush to be hidden. It sounded like a struggle or a chase. The men froze. Bradley immediately raised his rifle. Jacob did the same. Then, like a shot, a pack of coyotes burst from the tree-line. Dozens of them, snarling, yipping, running for their lives. Not at the men, but across the path and into the opposite woods. They didn't even notice the two hunters. Bradley, an experienced Marine, had faced some tense moments, but this was wrong. Animals don't behave like that. Coyotes don't run from shadows without reason. Then, the forest fell silent completely. No wind, no birds, no chirping insects. Just nothing. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. And then crack. A towering pine tree came crashing down across their path, landing just feet in front of them, shaking the ground. Bradley and Jacob staggered back, eyes wide. Before they could speak, a voice echoed from the direction of the fallen tree. It was a girl's voice. Help. Please. I'm stuck. Jacob, help me. Bradley turned sharply. Was that Olivia? He asked, already stepping toward the sound. But Jacob grabbed his arm, yanking him back with a grip like iron. His face had gone pale. That's not her, Jacob whispered. She's not here. She couldn't be here. Bradley blinked. But that was her voice. Jacob didn't answer. His hand trembled slightly as the voice called again, this time louder, more frantic. I'm hurt. I can't move. Olivia, it cried, again and again. But something about the voice felt off. Too perfect. Too clear. Like a recording played on loop. Then it stopped. The silence returned. And from behind the fallen tree, it appeared 0.9 feet tall. Maybe More. Its skin was stretched thin over its skeletal frame, pale like moonlit ash. Empty eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light, boring into them. Its limbs were elongated, its fingers too long, curled into claws. It didn't move, but the air seemed to get colder. Bradley lifted his rifle. Don't. Jacob hissed. Run. They turned and sprinted, tearing through the underbrush, not daring to look back. Their boots slammed against the damp earth, branches whipping at their faces. Something moved behind them, crashing through the trees with terrifying speed. But the forest was too dense to see clearly. Finally, they reached the truck. Bradley fumbled for the keys. The engine roared to life, and they sped away down the gravel road, not slowing until Jacob's house was in sight. Bradley, still breathless, finally asked, "What the hell was that?" Jacob just stared ahead, hands still white-knuckled on the wheel. "I don't know," he said quietly, "but I've heard stories." He told Bradley about the missing hunters in the area, guys who had gone deep into the woods and never come back. Their gear sometimes turned up later, boots, packs, even rifles, but no bodies and no sign of struggle. That night, as soon as they got home, Jacob called his sister. She answered right away. Olivia was fine. She hadn't left the house all day. The second story comes from the fall of 2015, down in rural Texas, just outside Houston. Adam Reed, a local police officer, had just finished a long shift. It was close to midnight when he offered to give his friend, Luke, a ride home from the city. The two lived on neighboring properties just outside town, a long drive past fields and into dense, private land. Luke had been out drinking with some old friends, and Adam, always the dependable one, didn't mind picking him up. They often shared rides for work or nights out. It was a quiet routine, and that night felt like any other. That is, until they pulled off the main highway and started down the dirt road leading to Luke's property. As they drove past the tree line, Adam noticed something odd near Luke's fire pit, a large, hand-dug basin about 6 feet across and a few feet deep. Something was glowing from inside. Two bright points of light. Adam slowed the car, puzzled. At first, he thought it might be someone with flashlights, but the way the lights moved, steady, unblinking, made his stomach twist. Luke noticed it too. They parked about 40 yards away, keeping the headlights on. Both men stared ahead. The lights didn't move. They didn't flicker. Then, they disappeared and reappeared, like eyes blinking. Adam, ever the trained officer, reached for the sidearm he always kept holstered. Luke ran into his house to grab his rifle. Adam approached the pit slowly, scanning with the flashlight attached to his weapon. But when he reached the edge, it was empty. Nothing but dirt and shadows. Then came the sound of footsteps behind him. At first, he assumed it was Luke returning. But these footsteps were heavy. Too heavy. Like something much larger than a man. Then, a sharp crack of a rifle shot split the air. Adam spun, heart hammering, to see Luke standing on the porch, weapon raised, staring wide-eyed at the woods. Beyond, Adam turned to look, and there it was. A creature, tall, grotesque, impossibly lean, sprinting toward the forest on all fours. Its limbs bent at strange angles, its skin pale as chalk against the blackness. It was fast, too fast. Before it reached the trees, it stopped and turned its head. Those same glowing eyes stared directly at them. Without hesitation, both men fired. Muzzle flashes lit up the night, but the thing didn't even flinch. It vanished into the forest as if the bullets didn't matter. Driven by adrenaline and disbelief, they gave chase. Grabbing high-powered flashlights, they plunged into the dark woods behind Luke's home. For the next 20 minutes, they hunted, listening, watching, hoping they might find blood or tracks or anything that proved they'd hit their target. Nothing. Then, a noise overhead. A rustling. They pointed their lights up, and there, perched on a branch 15 feet above them, were those same eyes, looking down. The creature let out a guttural, inhuman roar that echoed through the trees. And once again, it vanished. They didn't sleep that night. They searched the woods until dawn, following sounds, firing at shadows. But the thing never reappeared. The next day, Adam returned to Luke's land. Together, they scoured the area by daylight. What they found sent chills down their spines. Areas of crushed underbrush, trampled violently, as if something massive had run through at high speed. And in the soft dirt, strange tracks. Triangular impressions, too wide and deep for any animal. They knew. Adam had been trained to explain things, to look for logic. But nothing about this encounter made sense. They both knew what they saw. And whatever it had been watching them long before they'd arrived. And the third and final story comes from the winter of 2010, deep in the Canadian wilderness. Robert Garvey, a businessman based in Toronto, had taken a rare break from work to reconnect with his family. His father and older brother, James, still lived up north, where the trees are tall and cell service is nearly non-existent. A way to spend time together. They invited Robert on a weekend hunting trip. Robert wasn't much of an outdoorsman, but he agreed, eager to reconnect and maybe clear his mind. They packed up gear, rifles, and supplies, and headed north along a frozen river that cut through miles of untouched forest. By dusk they'd reached a secluded spot and made camp near the icy banks. That night, under the black sky and distant stars, Robert woke needing to relieve himself. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped away from the fire. Down toward the river, as he stood facing the water, a foul stench hit his nose, thick and rotten, like something long dead. He turned the flashlight toward the source, the underbrush. A few feet away, and someone stepped out. It was his brother, James. "Dude, what are you doing?" Robert asked, laughing nervously. "You scared the hell out of me." James just smiled, holding out his hand, saying nothing. Robert noticed something odd. His brother's expression was wrong. Too stiff. His smile didn't move. His eyes didn't blink. And then Robert looked closer. The clothes James wore, the hunting jacket and boots, looked oversized, sagging, as if they didn't fit. His skin, too. It seemed to be slipping, drooping around the jaw and hands. Then, without warning, James began to fall apart. His clothes crumpled to the ground, so did the skin. And in their place stood something else entirely. A creature. Tall, skeletal, completely inhuman. Its body was stretched and hunched, and its face was not a face. Where the eyes should have been, there were black hollows. And the mouth extended outward like a snout, packed with jagged, yellow teeth. Before Robert could run, something clamped around his leg. Sharp, cold, and strong, he screamed, collapsing onto the frozen dirt, kicking and thrashing wildly. He rolled onto his back, searching for something, anything to fight back with. Then came a thunderous boom, a rifle shot from behind him. The grip on his leg released instantly. He scrambled backward, heart pounding, and saw his father standing nearby, rifle in hand, smoke rising from the barrel. The creature had vanished. His father fired again into the trees before rushing to Robert's side. They made their way back to camp, where, to Robert's shock, James was there, standing at the fire, unharmed. "What the hell happened?" James asked, confused by their panic. Robert tried to explain, stammering, but James laughed. Thought it was a prank or hallucination. But his father, he didn't laugh that he'd seen it too. And when he pulled up Robert's pant leg, there was a deep gash, blood running down into his boot. Whatever had grabbed him had pierced clean through the fabric. They didn't stay the night. They packed up and left immediately, walking for hours through the dark woods, never looking back, across tribes and cultures. The interpretation of what exactly a Wendigo is varies. Some see it as a cursed human, someone who gave in to hunger and became a monster. Others say it is a spirit, an entity that possesses the weak-willed and turns them into something unspeakable. Still others believe it is neither spirit nor man, but something older, something that has always lived among the forests, hunting, silently. Shapeshifter, mimic, predator, demon. Some say it can take your voice. Others say it can wear your face. All agree, it doesn't die easily. It doesn't feel. And it doesn't forget to eye in the stories we've shared tonight. Whether in Alabama, Texas, or Canada, certain traits appear over and over. The glowing eyes, the emaciated, towering form, the ability to imitate a loved one's voice or appearance, and, most disturbingly, the way it vanishes as quickly as it appears, leaving behind only fear and missing persons reports. Skeptics chalk it up to stress, imagination, or hallucinogenic plants. But others, especially those raised near the deep woods, believe something else. Something is out there, and it's always hungry. So, what do we make of it? Are these just tales passed down through generations, twisted by time and fear? Or is there truly something ancient in the forests, something no bullet can kill and no camera can capture? It's easy to dismiss legends. Easier still to laugh at monsters when the sun is shining and the world feels safe. But out there, beyond the last streetlight, past the final fence, where the trees grow too thick and the air gets too quiet, something might still be watching. Call it myth. Call it madness. But if you ever hear a familiar voice calling you from deep in the woods, one that shouldn't be there, don't answer, don't follow, and whatever you do, don't look back. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay curious. And remember, some legends never die. They just wait for you to get lost.